Welcome to The State of Us. Real people with honest opinions and the future of responsible media. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
Consider that 1/4 of working Americans say that they have no pension, no retirement savings at all. That's right. 1 of every 4 Americans says they got nothing in the way of any retirement at all. Zero, zip, nada, none of it. It's a pretty fair amount. So why do you care? Maybe you're in the 75% who does. So good for you. Congratulations. But you might be one of in the 75% who's not real fond of the way your retirement package is working for you, or the complications when you've switched jobs, or the confusing tax code around what you can and can't do and how much you can and can't put in. So today we're talking about something that ideally applies to all Americans, both the 75% who do have some form of retirement savings and those who do not. We're going to do what the article in the Wall Street Journal says, which is forget the 401k. Let's invent a new retirement plan. That's what we're looking at today. But before we begin on that, like I said, it applies to everybody. So hopefully that's why you care. Hopefully you're thinking about, maybe you're one of those people though that says, I don't plan to retire. Well, we'll tell you. You'll have to stick around. You'll just have to hear us out. There's a reason that you care too, but I can't give it away yet. So without further ado, though, we can't begin this critical conversation without
your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
Hey, the redneck's always been interested in retirement, so you got my attention.
Yeah,
and I've got it. I'm on one. I have one. I have a work one and a private one.
So you're in the 75%.
Yes.
Okay,
but I have double.
Wow,
I guess.
You're with the herd. That's unusual.
Well, I have my own because I don't trust the work one.
Oh, okay. There's our caveat. There is, I'm in the 75%, but I'm not because I'm less trusting than
That's
the rest
right.
of them.
I'm not depending upon my work one to last. I made my own private investments as well along the way.
So think about the fact that the Federal Reserve tells us that among those who are 60 or older, 13% say that they have nothing saved for retirement, leaving them to rely largely on Social Security, which often won't pay enough to sustain their standards of living. In 1999, in 1981, that's when Ted Benna came up with the first practical 401k plan. However, the pace at adoption has been glacial at best. In 1999, private employers offered retirement plan coverage to 63% of workers. So that doesn't sound so bad. I mean, hey, from 1981 to 1999, we got it up to 63%. But here's the kicker. As of 2017, nearly 2 decades later, the number had ticked up to 66%. So we maxed out. We kind of hit the ceiling, and then that was it. So we're not gaining a lot of ground is the synopsis here. And that leads us to examine, is the 401k is it truly the best we can do? And of course, what the article proposes to us, Lance, is no, it's not the best we can do. So we're going to look here at what the suggestion is. And then we're going to get into, do we like this suggestion? And what's our alternative? So,
but the 401k is okay. Is okay for the people that have it. The problem is it hasn't been universal
Well, he actually says the guy that came up with it is basically saying what he came up with is not the best answer.
Okay.
So this is
but it's better than having nothing.
Right.
So not to scare those people that have been paying into a 401k.
Right.
Having that is better than having nothing.
Yes.
But we can probably improve upon it.
There's a better option. It's not a bad option. It's just
after almost 40 years, we found maybe a better way to approach this.
Right. Which you would hope, right? I mean, as time goes on.
My 401k is not a bad idea. It's for what I had available to me at the time.
Yes. It's better than not choosing to save for retirement. Okay. Put it that way. So he explains, and again, this is the guy in 1981 who implemented the first practical 401k. So this is from the horse's mouth. All businesses with 10 or more employees, he thinks, should have to offer a retirement plan. Employers should also be required to enroll their employees in the plan automatically, he says, and to increase workers' contributions on a predetermined schedule over time until they're saving at least 6% of pay. He says he also explains that employers could satisfy that requirement by offering a payroll deduction IRA program with minimal administrative cost. Workers would still be free to opt out of saving or to reduce their contribution rate, but they would have to make an active choice to do so. So he's flipping this around and saying, right now you have to make a choice to opt in. Instead, you'll make a choice to opt out. And, you know, I'm seeing Lance's wheels turning. Mine were kind of doing the same thing. I'm like, I understand, obviously, how that would get, I mean, in theory, right, that would make it so that more people were saving, because there's a lot of people who are they're just going to show up to work and they're not going to pay a lot of attention to what's withheld and what's not. And
right. They're just living day to day.
Yeah. I mean, they're not really thinking about that. So sure, for those people, that's probably valuable, but I don't know if I'm crazy about one of those, well, I'm in it unless I say I don't want to be.
But still, they have to tell you that. I think I'm okay with it because they would tell you that as part of the hiring process. This is something that comes with your job. If you don't want it, then you can reject it. So do you want to have part of your paycheck put into a retirement fund for you that's connected to the stock market, bond fund, passbook savings account, or whatever the account is set up to earn money from? Do you want that or not? If, you're automatically enrolled in it. So if you don't want it, initial here. If they tell you that ahead of time, what's your issue?
If they say it ahead of time.
Well, I mean, they have to, because you have to fill out your tax forms you have to do. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you just make that part of the law, is that you have to make these people aware. And then it's like anything else. It's like it's still upon you then at that point to go and investigate whether or not you want to be a part of something like that. It's like when my daughter calls me and says, Dad, how much should I put in my HSA? Is it health at HSA?
Yeah, your health savings account.
Yeah. How much should I put in? She has matching funds from her job. If she puts in so much, they match up to this percentage. Okay. How much should I put in on top of that now, Dad? What's the right thing? Okay. She calls and asks me, but that's still on her to do that. So that's no different. You understand what I'm saying? They've offered it to her and she can reject it.
Right.
She doesn't have to put anything in.
I'm not opposed to it being less complicated. I'm just not sure that this is the best. In other words, I guess as I'm thinking about it, it's not a bad option. Like, I think it will help, because part of what the article points out is that we know that from psychology, people will rarely reverse a decision they've made. People tend to be stubborn. So most who are prodded into saving, we say, well, you're saving, and then they find out later, oh, I've been saving. Most of them are not likely to reverse that decision later. So it's beneficial in that coerce is too strong of a word, but it greatly increases the likelihood that people who would not otherwise voluntarily opt in will have a savings. Right.
But at 18 or 23, you don't know.
But you should.
And you're invincible. But we don't teach it. We've been over this before. I understand.
We should.
I totally agree with you, but we don't. So you can't govern based on what you would like to have happen. You have to govern on what is happening and then work to make the changes to get it to where you want it. So the status quo being what it is, and that is 25% of Americans don't have a personal savings account for retirement. We need to do something. We can't just, we can't keep saying we should put it in our schools. It should be part of the curriculum. That needs to be done. But what do you do to solve the problem now? And if putting people in it and saying, if you don't want to, you can get out of it. Does that? I think that's wonderful, because now let's look at the back end of this. These 25% of Americans who are, 13% of people who are 60, that's the scary part. Not the 25, but the 13% of the part of the population that's 60 years old that doesn't have one. Who's going to take care of these people?
I know. I guess the point,
it means it's going to fall on society. So
yeah.
I would rather at 18 or 22 put them in a savings account and have them have to opt out of it than have to take care of 15% of the people that don't have anything. Unless you want to go, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but hey, it's your grandma. You take care of them. I don't have to. If they're on the streets homeless, that's your problem. It's not society's problem. And I'm not trying to be hard-hearted, but if you don't take care of it on the front end, then you have situations to deal with on the back end. And then of the 75% of the people who have one, how many of them have saved enough? No, then how many? So it's still going to fall on society. So if we can solve part of the problem on the front end, I'm okay with. It's not is it a mandatory, enrollment? It's not really mandatory enrollment, because you have the option. Yeah. You can opt out.
It's gray.
And you can opt out when you. So I don't have the problem with it that you do.
Because the
we
article,
can move on, but I disagree. I don't have a problem with it.
The article doesn't go into any detail about what that opt out looks like. Like you said, is it when you're going through stuff with HR where somebody sits down and says, okay, just so that you understand, we're going to be taking this percentage of your income and putting it into savings unless you tell me you don't want to. Is it that, or is it somewhere in the 20 different forms that all have this very fine print that we have to file with the government because it's way too complicated to hire people, that there's some little box somewhere that says initial here if you don't want X% factored at X rate to go into your savings account? Because my point is there's a big difference. The opt-out thing. It sounds nice, but is it something that they're really going to understand is happening and understand they had the choice not to do it? If so, I don't have as much of a problem with it, because I agree it's an immediate thing that's much easier to do than some of what I want to talk about, which is what we're getting to, which are the better long-term options. Okay. So I guess that's the caveat I give, is I wouldn't oppose that being the way it is, as long as it's the first scenario I presented and not the second. In other words, not some little box on the 18th page of the 20th document that you have to fill out that, is one sentence and we are hoping that people see it and understand it. No, it's somebody at at your employer explains to you that you need to know this is part of what's going to happen to some of your income. Because what I don't want is people to, to get their second or third paycheck and say, oh, gee, why is, where's that 6% going? What is that? That's what I don't want. And of course you're going to have that because some people won't listen, but it's a lot better. There's a lot better chance if somebody goes over it with them that if they really don't want it, they're going to get out of it. So it's a stopgap, I guess, in my mind, because truthfully, Lance, I have never been a big fan of the way that we view the whole thing right now. And what I mean by that is this 401k thing. The idea that your employer is responsible for your retirement in some way, or that the government is responsible for your retirement in some way. I've always thought, and this is my problem with Social Security too, I've always thought, to me, that doesn't sound like freedom and capitalism. That sounds like we're going to tell you what's best for you and that you need to save for retirement because that's what we say. And we say that you retire at this age because this is when you can get Social Security, which then becomes generally accepted as, around this age, around 65 or around whatever it is at the given time. That's when people quit working,
But in Ohio and as a teacher, and that's where I've spent my entire career, so I can't necessarily speak to all states, but I think it's fairly similar. Mm-hmm. That was one of the perks of the job.
Right.
Is that I wasn't going to have to work until age 65. I wasn't going to be a part of Social Security, and I would have a separate retirement system of which so much of it was going to be funded by the school district as part of my salary. So I took less money up front because I was guaranteed income upon retirement.
And I'm not opposed to it being a perk.
So that was a choice. So, depending on how you look at it, you would say, well, I was coerced into that because I didn't have a choice. But I went in with my eyes wide open knowing that was the system. And I took less salary up front. Okay. But if you're going to choose a profession, those should be some of the things you think about.
Sure, they should. My point is,
if you don't,
I'm not opposed to employers being able to offer them. The difference is telling employers that they must, because it's like the minimum wage thing, for example, right?
Well, I have to. As a teacher, I can't opt out of the state teacher retirement system.
I know. And that's where I'm saying.
And you have a problem with that?
My problem is that you can't not do it. It's now, and the reality is you can, right? Because you don't have to teach in a public school.
Right.
That's the truth is you have a freedom in that respect of you don't like it, you can go do a different job. You can go teach for somebody who's not part of the public education system. So I get that there's a choice at that level. What I'm getting at is I don't like the notion that what the government is portraying to people is that retirement is a part of life and that you should save approximately this, and that's what we as a nation are now going to consider to be the way it is, and I'm just saying, I think that it's fine if people want that, but I think there's a better way to achieve it that isn't this. I would rather see us offer an option that's available to everybody, right? You don't have to opt in. You don't have to opt out. It's there if you want it, kind of thing. Because part of what the article talks about is this shift. For starters, your savings should follow you wherever you go or however you work. So that's the notion of everybody from the moment they're born, right, attached to their Social Security number or whatever, has their savings for retirement account.
Under your plan, if you choose to do it.
No, it's there. You never have to use it. In other words, it's kind of like, it's like your Social Security number. You have one.
So you never have to put any money into it.
Right.
Under your plan. Under their plan, you would, unless you opt out.
Unless you specifically say not to. And so this is something you can give to any employer. In other words, so it's not administered through the employer, but it's specific to you.
Through the government, which is even better.
Yes. So that, again, we're ensuring everybody has one. Because this, for example, for me, this would be one that I don't use.
You're ensuring everybody has an option to have one.
Yes. Has the option.
Because I could choose not to ever donate to it.
Yes. You have it, but if it has a zero balance, then, do you really have it? It's like, I have a bank account here, but there's no money in it. So it's, technically you'd have it, but you don't have anything. It's just an empty account. So you have that program, right? And you can put money into it. And I would go so far as to say there's no limit. If you want to put 80% away and you can figure out how to do that, fine. You should have that option. You shouldn't be penalized.
How's that different than what we have?
Saving more than
how's that different than what we have today?
Well, there's caps and limits on how much you're allowed to save.
Only if you want to do it before taxes.
Right, before taxes.
You can save all you want after you pay the taxes.
Yeah. Exactly. And a reminder for people, you still have to. You still have to pay those taxes. It's just, we're just shifting how those taxes are paid. I don't have to pay them now. I'm going to have to pay them later. I don't have to pay them now. Which again, something that I've never been terribly fond of with the system is like, pay them now, pay them later. I'm going to have to pay them. So why screw with that at all? I don't know. I think in my mind, it was
at the end of your career, you're going to be making less money. So therefore you're in a lower tax bracket. So you're going to save some money that you'd pay to the government anyway, and then pay less in taxes out as you use it during retirement.
That would be the thinking.
That's right.
Is that there's a little benefit to not paying the tax until later because hopefully you drop an income bracket, at least one, and then your taxes are less. So, it's a legal cheat to the system, so to speak.
Well, it's an incentive to save.
Yeah.
So that hopefully it unburdens Social Security a little bit, or people can live better than people who only have Social Security to live off.
Or we don't have to have Social Security at all.
Right.
Because if you've been listening to the news the past 24, 48 hours, we don't want to be a socialist country. We don't want to go back to that. We don't want socialism.
No, we don't want to
social security.
Yeah, no, we don't want to. We don't want to have it in our country,
I know.
which we already do. But that's not this episode.
Yeah, I know.
So what's the plan, Stan?
Yes. So the plan.
Read.
Yeah, I was going to say, before we get to that, though, Lance, you got to remind people why we're talking about this.
Well, our mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And if you have a concern of ethical proportions, you should contact TrueChat at ethics@truechat.org with an email?
Yeah, an email. Email ethics@truechat.org. People can engage with us. They can tell us their thoughts on retirement. How are you saving? Let us know at TrueChat.org, Facebook, Twitter, and all the social media. So here's the idea, Lance. I've got a few.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that any of these are the thing.
So we've covered the article. These are now Justin's ideas for retirement.
These are my ideas.
Okay. All right.
So
we're
that's right.
we're leaving the reservation.
Yeah, we're leaving. Right. Here we go. Down the rabbit hole. You ready?
Nope. You got
I know.
10 minutes.
I know. Hopefully it'll be relatively quick. And I'll let you tell me why they're bad. So first up, I'd like to say, I think that businesses should be able to offer things outside of all of this as an incentive. I'm all for that because that's free market. That's capitalism, baby, working. You know, you got to find better workers, offer them something better. And if what people really want is retirement, then that's what employers will offer. If people don't really want that, then they won't offer it. And great, because that to me is the essence of what America is ideally supposed to be. If people want something, there will be someone or something that offers it. If they don't want it, it won't be an option. And to me, this whole thing should boil down to that. If people don't want to retire, it should not be difficult for them to avoid putting money away for retirement. I have paid into Social Security and I don't want to. I do not want to put my money there because I can make more money with that money doing other things with it. And I should not be required to do that. That to me does not seem like choice and opportunity. That seems like the government wagging its finger saying, you're going to do this and we don't care if you like it or not. Especially since me and Caleb, our producer, may never get it back. You know, that at some point they might say, well, we're sorry. We know you put all that money in there, but oh, well, because.
So you don't want to take care of everybody else's
upside down
elderly family members?
No.
Okay.
I think you should. I will, you know, and I think that Lance should.
But I'm saying your money.
And I think
you don't want
your daughter should take care of you.
You don't want your money used to take care of strangers, elderly people.
No.
Okay.
Because maybe they don't want to be taken care of. Just
just let them die off.
It's that whole thing that we have this assumption in our society that we know what's best for people, that we know that we should take care of them. Maybe they don't want to be taken care of.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I just want to make sure
I'm just saying. Yeah.
I just want to make sure you understand that you're all right for these old people to die because they didn't save enough money on their own and or their family's not going to take care of them. So
they have the right to die early from not having saved
because we're not going to provide them,
their family not caring for
them. We're not
them.
going to provide them with government medical care or free prescriptions or anything else.
Well, the healthcare thing, we get into a different. We talked about what I want to do with healthcare.
If they can't pay their bills and they don't own their own home and they can't pay their rent, and then they're just out on the streets and they survival of the fittest.
But this whole thing I'm going over, yes, comes with a caveat. Okay. It comes with the caveat that we fix the problem in the education system, which is that, as Lance highlighted earlier, we don't teach any of this. Or if we do, we stick it in something like a history class and say, yeah, financial literacy, for 3 weeks, because that'll be enough. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a minimum of a semester required across the nation, you know, where we teach an understanding of taxes, retirement, checking, savings accounts, money, you know, the literal lifeblood of what makes the country go. If we're going to force the kids to go to school, then we might as well force them to eat something that's actually going to help them. And the reality is I can't personally justify being okay with my dollars paying for everything that we currently pay to teach and not pay for this. Again, I'm not saying I'm opposed to teaching what we currently teach. I'm opposed to doing it instead of this. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So big caveat to everything I'm saying. Okay. In all of these situations, that happens before these other things are implemented.
So you want the right to opt out of Social Security. What's number 2?
Yeah. Well, I don't want there to be Social Security, just to be clear.
Okay.
Because this account thing you have is
you can't get rid of it for
choice.
people who have decided upon it, dude.
Well, we can write them a check for what they've put in and say, there you go. You know, that's what you put in. You can do whatever you want with it. Have it back.
Contact TrueChat and talk to Justin T. Weller.
And if they don't want it, they can write the check over to me.
He's the one who's throwing your grandparents out on the street.
No, you're doing that. You don't want to take care of them. It's your problem. Your fault.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
Last time I checked, Lance, we lived in a country where we're, air quotes here, free.
Social
right?
Security stops now.
Yeah.
All right.
Uh-huh. And here's your check for what you've put in. Okay. And if you want to put it into the new account, you can do that. You know, and the new account in my mind is basically a voluntary Social Security option, you know, so that we can appease the liberals who think that the government should handle this for people. They have that choice. They can still do that if that's what they want to do. And they're being taught about it in school so that they know they have that choice instead of, oh, I don't know. You know, I didn't know what Social Security was. I didn't know why my money was going there. None of that. None of that. So we got those 2 points. Yeah.
Yeah. I got you.
Okay. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a government option if you want the government option. Right. We teach about that option in school, right, and we teach about non-government options. Okay. And there's none of this weird, you know, you can have an IRA, a Roth IRA, a 401k. There's the thing that you can have that's from the government, and it's the only option that is a tax deferred option. And there's no cap and no limit to what you contribute. It's there if you want it.
You have the government option and then your own personal option.
And then, of course, you can do whatever you want on a personal level. If you want to invest in the stock market and pay the taxes.
But I don't have to get involved in the government option at all.
No, you don't have to.
All right.
If Lance looks at it and says, I will make more money even paying taxes in the stock market, which generally speaking is usually true, then you can go do that.
Okay.
And you never have to put a dime in that account, you know, a penny.
Gotcha.
Not that pennies matter much anymore, right? But
I'm all for it because I basically did that anyway.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do, you know.
And see, that's why,
to the extent the government will let me.
Right. And that's why Social Security for the last 25 years has been trying to get into teacher retirement, because our retirement is better than Social Security, which is one of the, not the only reason, but it wasn't even a reason, but it was a perk for going into this job. So I don't disagree with you, man, because it's all about taking care of yourself. And if you want to live high off the hog and take all these vacations and then you all of a sudden can't work anymore and you got nothing to live off of and you didn't buy insurance and you don't purchase these things. Okay. I'm fine with that. You should pay for the way you live. And because I've saved money and worked hard and not done things and not bought new things and not done this and not done that. And so now I have money available for me at the end of my life. Good for me. We chose two different paths. What I don't like is people who have spent all their money and then they get to where the point that I am and then they put their hand out to the government and said, bail me out.
Yep.
Said
I wasn't smart and I didn't plan. And
well, whether you were smart or not, it's like, I don't care. I'm not going to live to be 60 anyway. So I'm just going to
game the system. Right?
I'm just going to party and have a good time and whatever, or I never thought that, I never knew I was going to get in a car accident, or I didn't know I was going to get this terminal disease. And then, okay, I really feel sorry for you, but that's not my problem.
Yeah. You had the choice.
And by the same token, people say, I can't wait till something happens to that redneck liberal. By God, he'll just have to, I'm not going to lift his hand up and help him. Okay. I don't expect you to.
But you have people that will.
I don't expect you to. All right. Well, I hope.
And you've prepared for that as well. I mean, that's the other thing, people. It's like, I know it sounds mean and cold what Lance and I are saying, but keep in mind, I added that big caveat that since we require all children, unless they're going to go to a private school, right? They're supposed to be in public education. Everybody, or 99.9% of everybody, will learn about this option. They will be told that this exists. And if they don't want to use it, then they shouldn't have to, because I don't want to use it. So I'm telling people I don't want it, and no, I'm not going to come and say, I think it's some stranger's job to do this. It's different. Your morals, your ethics, maybe you want to donate to nonprofits that help those people. Fine. They should be allowed to exist. I'm not saying they can't.
It's your money. If you want to do that with it,
that's fine.
More power to you.
And I, personally have given money to people before who I thought were in a bad spot and needed help. And that's fine. You can still do that. Nobody's saying you can't. It's just a difference between Lance and I and the people listening being responsible for people who chose not to be responsible and then are expecting us to help them. Why is that our job?
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly. And as one of my favorite songs says, country boys will survive.
We'll be fine. Yep.
We'll make it.
The last thing I have for you, Lance, I just wrote this down because I mentioned it before, is just let the listeners think about this. You can give me your thoughts real quick. What if we just get rid of retirement? Why don't we just do away with this thing called retirement? And everybody's like, oh my God, that's what I worked my whole life for. But wait, because people like Lance are still working. Whether or not he's getting paid, set that aside for a moment, okay? He's still working. He coaches regularly. He's on this program 3 days a week. He's doing, probably if you add it all up, he's probably still working close to a full-time job. That's the reality.
It's pretty close.
And a lot of people who have retired, I know, are still very actively doing things, that some of us would consider work. So the point is, what if we move to something like a 3-day work week for your whole life? As technology gets better, the ability to do work on your good days, front load work on your good days, and then, on your bad days, not do work because you already have it built up. I don't know. Well, it's just a thought.
Well, but you do understand. I don't necessarily like that because, again, if I want to work 7 days a week for the first 30 years, I don't want somebody dictating that I have to continue to work.
And that's fine.
And we do have to understand, folks, this country survived so far a longer period of time without Social Security than with Social Security. So we
don't remember that.
There was a time when your great grandma and grandpas did work until the day they died, because that was how you survived.
And they lived in your spare bedroom.
Right. Families took care of their own. And
if you didn't have family that could, then,
then in small towns in rural America, people would pick up and help you. And in the large cities, people passed away. But there were opportunities in the large city. So it's, again, this sounds really, but you don't have hard-hearted in some sense, maybe to some people, but you don't have to go too far back in history when this was the way we managed. And you could argue, okay, we didn't manage. It depends on what your definition of better is, but we did manage.
Yeah.
And
it worked, and people were not miserable. By many regards, we still had one of the highest standards of living in the world. So it's to say that there's other options. And so often I think what Lance and I feel is when we approach these things, everybody just approaches it from we got to stay within the way that we've been doing things. And why? Because it doesn't have to be. Nope. So let us know your thoughts. Maybe we're nuts. Maybe we're terrible people at TrueChat.org, or maybe we're super smart and you think, yep, that's the way it should be. So Lance, how can people listen?
Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts.
And everybody's supposed to bring us at least one new listener this year. If you're out there, you're hearing this, we've tasked you with it. We need your help. Please do it. We'd much appreciate it. On that note, for the State of Us in Urbana, I'm Justin T. Weller.
And I'm Lance Jackson.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change.